the children are making an emotional connection to what you're learning.
One of the things that in finding that I really like about unit studies is that it's not a checklist every day that every day you have to do math, every day you have to do science, every day you have to do history and geography. That to me becomes kind of overwhelming. And we don't do those things every day, but I know for a lot of moms and
Mhm.
dads who homeschool, they feel like they need to check all of those boxes every day. And I'm seeing that with unit studies, that's not how it works.
It's
Like,
absolutely true.
yeah. So continue. Let's move on.
Okay.
Let's
Okay.
continue
So,
on.
right.
Keep
So we've
taking us
already
through
talked
this.
about ducks one day, then we talked about maps another day. So
Okay.
this is set in Boston. So we would also learn about some major characteristics of Boston. What are some specific buildings that are there, or a park, or if we were something like that. So then, and you might not know those things for Boston, but I can guarantee you, you can go on Google Maps, go to downtown Boston, and you'll be able to find all sorts of stuff. So you could get a book on Boston. Same thing, like we've already talked about. Learn about the city features of Boston. How big is it? What are some major? Of course, we know there's lots of history in Boston. So that might be your another geography or social studies for that day. And then another thing that's great. So in this book, there is one spot where the policeman has his whistle and he is helping the ducklings cross the street and stopping traffic. So we could talk about helpers, right?
Mhm.
Community helpers. That's a great kindergarten, first grade unit. Who doesn't love to learn about policemen, right?
Yeah.
So that would be
Maybe go
another
to the
unit.
police station and do a
Absolutely. It's a
field trip.
perfect field trip. Yep. Yep. It's a great way to do it. So, and how he helps in the city. And, we could talk about how we interact with them and the service that they do for our communities and their importance. And then one thing we haven't talked about yet, and this would be good for, so that could be another day where you've read the book and we've talked about community helpers and some features of Boston. And then the next day, we haven't done any art yet. So I'll show for the people who are just watching. So most of the books, what you'll learn is you can see the specific kinds of art. Sometimes they're
Mhm.
watercolor paintings. So sometimes they're charcoal, sometimes they're pencil. So what you'll do, and you can usually learn this from the publisher if you can't figure it specifically, if it's an oil painting or however the illustrations were made. So you could pick one picture and have your student copy that picture.
Mm.
You could learn you could take your pencil and try and copy a picture in here. You could learn shading with your pencil. And again, your 5-year-old might just copy the little duck on the picture,
Mhm.
whereas your 9-year-old might practice shading and put some very specific features on your picture. And then your 11-year-old might practice even more detail and things like that. So all three of your children are doing the exact same thing, but they're doing it at their own level each time.
Yeah.
So I think we've hit most of what you would hit as you were learning. Migration would be another great topic. So
Mhm.
each day you pick a general topic, what we would call a subject, a
Mhm.
content area, and you might hit geography one week, and the next week it might not be a book that lends itself to geography. And that's
Right.
okay because we don't have to hit that all the time. Some books, Make Way for Ducklings, would be really heavy on geography because of the whole mapping concept.
Yeah.
And so you could spend 2 days doing creative things for geography. And then it might be that one week is a very heavy science week. We focused really heavily on animals because little kids love to learn about animals and they just add a lot of fun. And then try and add a field trip. That's another great thing. You can go feed the ducks. Of course,
Yeah.
ducks in particular are generally easy to find, especially if you do it in the spring, then you see ducklings and that's an extra bonus. So the benefit of a unit study, I think one of the most important benefits to wrap it up is that the children are making an emotional connection to what you're learning. So instead of just reading a paragraph and answering 3 questions about
Mhm.
ducks, they are remembering this story. They're remembering your field trip. They're remembering their own picture of a duck that they drew and is on the refrigerator for 2 weeks. When dad comes home, they're going to tell them that ducks are waterproof and ducks are buoyant. And that's their emotional connection. So then they're invested in the learning because they're emotionally connected to it. And then
Yeah.
the bigger sibling is going to know more than the younger sibling, and they're going to be able to tell dad more about that at dinner. And so it's just such a great way to connect the whole family. It's significantly less planning for a mom
Yeah.
because all your kids can be doing, I mean, it's so easy. Social studies, science, applied math, applied language arts, geography, and art
Yeah.
all at the same time with all of your ages of children.
That's amazing.
What a great way to school. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. This is so fun. You know, it's so funny with the ages of my girls. There are so many times I hear about things. I'm like, oh man, okay, I want to reverse back, 5 years ago or 10 years ago and start all over because this just sounds like a really fun way to homeschool. And again, moms, dads, if this is a great fit for your family, try it. Try doing a unit study. Try it maybe for a month. Commit to doing it for a month and see if maybe it's something that would work for you. Melissa gave some really great resources. You could go to 5inarow.com, unitstudy.com, homeschoolshare.com, or kathyduffyreviews.com. I will put all of those links in the show notes, and you guys can go on there, check out different unit studies. Like you mentioned, you could go to Pinterest and find things, but just don't overwhelm yourself. Don't feel like you have to do
Absolutely.
all of the things. Do
Mhm.
what works best for your family, what you're comfortable with, and what will be fun for you as their teacher and what will be fun for your kids, because that's when education really comes alive. It doesn't come alive when we're sitting doing worksheets. Some kids enjoy that. Really, they do. I mean, Lacey loves to do worksheets with certain things. She just thinks that's fun. Brooklyn, if she could burn every worksheet in the world, she would. I mean, she's just
Right.
never enjoyed it. So, do what works for your family, but try it out and see if maybe this is a good fit for your family. Thank you so much, Melissa. I have so appreciated your time this week and your knowledge and expertise in unit studies. It's been really helpful for me as well. So,
Can I add one more thing at the
yeah,
end? Because I
please.
realized this is something that I forgot about. But for moms who need, especially to have some proof, what would you do in this week? And how do our children show us that they're learning something? I talked a little bit about drawing, or, you take pictures of your field trip. One of the things that is really easy to do is take those collections of information
Mhm.
and put them in a notebook. So, 3 hole punch your picture of a duckling, 3 hole punch your map of Boston and your map that you drew walking down to your church. So that way you just have it collected in a notebook. You can show someone who needs to see your portfolio. You've learned about geography, and take a picture of grandpa when you're learning about that relationship, or the field trip of the police station. So it doesn't have to be a worksheet to show proof that you learned, but there are states that want to see something on paper.
Mhm.
So even if your child is telling you a story and you're writing down what they're telling you, they can teach you what they learned and what's most important, and that way you do have some proof for some of those very specifics, and kids love to look back on those notebooks
Yeah.
from the past, and it doesn't have to be prepared and fancy. 3 hole punch the piece of paper where they drew a duck, and it's a great memory.
Yeah, that's so fun. I have saved, some things from my girls from when they were really little, pictures that they've drawn and stuff, and they always have a really fun time. They laugh, of course, at looking at their pictures. They're like, "I drew that." I'm like, "Yes, you were like 3." And it is really fun to look back on that.